Welcome everyone. So very glad that you're here. Very sad that Father Shawn can't be with us today, and we always miss him because he has so many great insights to share, and um, we love his humor and everything. But he is taking his wife to appointments today, and we have a GoFundMe for Sharon Whittington. I can put the link after the show. It'll be in the comments section. She's going to need a very detailed surgery. It's a big deal. Um, so, anybody that wants to give some funds or some prayers, we appreciate the prayers too. Any way that you can help, and I'm hoping the best for her and that she gets a full and complete recovery soon. Having said all that, Father Shawn is a priest with the Old Catholic Church. He was on a great show called Elon Roth Presents The Legion of Exorcists on Travel Channel, which you can also watch on Max. All around the world, it's replaying and showing, and he is the author of two really wonderful books, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry 1 and 2. And those books are a collection of his real cases and what he's been through, and very, very interesting stories. A very scary book in its own right. I would recommend it highly. And it is also a way, to get him some extra money by buying the books, and he would get some royalty off of that. Speaking of books, I have two new books to announce this week. I have Dracula's Castle, which is by James Baxter, and that is a Gothic Victorian novella. Very, very beautifully written. Really enjoy that. Not a long read. This is our new Penny Dreadful series. If you're like me and you were a horror watcher back in the day, creature features and all that, I love these kinds of stories. Very nicely done. So that's Dracula's Castle by James Baxter. The second book is a children's book, and that book is Billy Rabbit Saves the Day. Very cute book. Our character is Billy Rabbit. He has a friend that's a squirrel named Russ, and they solve a little mystery. It's a story about teamwork and friendship, and very, very nice. And that book's doing pretty well. That book is in paperback and Kindle. So both of those titles are over on Amazon. And having said all of that, we have a really great guest. I am so thrilled to have her, and she is an author as well. She is a paranormal investigator in Colorado. She's having a little trouble with her camera, so we may see her sometimes and may not see her at other times. But as long as we can hear her, that's the important part. And her books are fabulous. So for the topic, I put Generational Curse because that is her most recent book. But she has some other books out there that are also very interesting and very intriguing. And we're going to ask her about all of that. And hello to everybody in the chat room. Honey and Heidi, Contessa, Kira, Carrie. Very nice to have you here with us today. Berta, my friend Berta from back in the day. Very, very happy to see everybody. And I'm going to bring Clarissa on. And we'll see if we can hear her. But we've got the spinny thing. So
can you hear me, Annette?
I do. Hi,
Okay.
Clarissa. I did see you for a minute.
I had it going with propping my phone up against the laptop, and then I think my phone went to sleep. And so now I'm trying to get it back. It's like technology is not my friend today.
Well, we're doing the best we can, and that's all we can do. I was just thinking with my intro, and I was doing it off the cuff that I say too much, and then I was trying not to say and then I said some more, and then you know. But
It happens.
we are imperfect people. Welcome to everybody. We have the best chatters. We always have such a great crowd here and good questions. And your books are very fascinating. Um, there I am again with oh, another I love the idea. I'm going to teach myself not to do it. I have a goal now. Um, ah,
It happens, Annette.
it does. Apparently, it happens a lot. Generational curse. That
Correct.
is very fascinating. Your other books are very cool too, that I saw that I wanted to mention today, and you could give the exact titles. But one is Haunted Railways, and there's another one that's like um, having to do with like haunted hitchhikers and the outdoors and stuff like that.
Right.
Which I love that because I shouldn't say this, but I think it's a little humorous. People tend, not as much nowadays, but back in the day, things that are haunted are enclosed spaces. If you run outside, it's okay because the outside is not haunted. Um, and that's really kind of hysterical. There's plenty of spirit activity everywhere. So some of those stories would be really nice too. If you feel like you might want to start with generational curses, that would be lovely. And I'll say to Linda, thank you for your prayers for sharing. We appreciate that. Very, very kind. And we'll keep you posted and updated on how she's doing. We'll be giving updates on the show every week. So we'll give it to Clarissa. I think they had a show back in the day called Clarissa Explains It All. So today we'll do Clarissa Explains It All.
Yeah, unfortunately, that wasn't me.
But generational curses is a really interesting topic.
Yeah, so Generational Curse is a fiction piece that I put out last year. It is loosely based on uh, events that happened in my younger days. And essentially, a generational curse isn't a paranormal phenomena at all. It's a psychological trait, whether it's a behavior or a mannerism or an attitude that is passed down through the generations. And sometimes these behaviors or aspects are wonderful and beautiful things, like kindness and charity. And other times they're not positive things, such as alcoholism or abusive behaviors. And so it's really up to individual people to make a conscious decision whether or not they're going to carry on those generational aspects, or if they are going to break the chain and end the curse, so to speak. And so what I did, when my husband passed in 2024, I realized that I had some generational curses, um, you know, behaviors and mannerisms that had been passed on to me through generations within my family. And I made the conscious decision to break some of those chains. And of course, being the paranormal researcher of 30 years that I am and author extraordinaire, I combined all of that and wove this, in my opinion, beautiful story of a woman who uh, goes head to head with one of her generational curses and has to combat that with only the skills that she possesses. And she's got the help of a very kind priest named Father Shawn.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good choice.
and a couple of ghosts. And so that's really what the story Generational Curse is about. Is she goes head to head um, with a with an entity and ends up confronting one of her generational curses. And so it's a beautiful story. It's actually a quick read, but it's received 5-star reviews across the board on Amazon, and it's doing great.
Nice. I love that. That's really interesting about. Okay, so your book isn't really completely on the topic of generational curse. It's a story about generational curse.
Correct.
Okay. Because you hear people talking about generational curses due to Freemasonry and
Right.
things like that in their family. And I saw, Clarissa popped out. Well, I'll just keep talking and maybe Clarissa can pop back in. Generational curses connected to Freemasonry, generational curses that could have been something that someone attempted to put on you. And that keeps going in the bloodline for at least 3 to 4 generations. And then the things that she's talking about, such as alcoholism and things like that, that are just blights in a family that keep repeating themselves generationally. But it's very interesting. When we get her back on, I'll ask her what she. Let me see if I got her here.
Can you hear me now?
I do.
Okay.
Luckily, I'm a good rambler in spite of all the ums.
No, it's all good, Annette. I apologize. This technology issue is really frustrating me. I don't generally have issues like this, and it's a brand new computer. I've only had it for 3 or 4 weeks, and so I'm struggling to get everything figured out and worked out.
That's the problem. Whenever I get anything new, or if they upgrade my stuff, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Because usually it's not that much better if I notice that it's better at all, but it's different. And I don't always have time for different.
Right.
We have a comment that says, and the all-time biggie, narcissistic abuse.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, some of this stuff could be learned and replicated by the younger generation. They saw that their parents acted a certain way. They think that's normal, so they're doing it too. Or it could be more than that.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And so, it's up to everyone as individuals to recognize what their demons are and make the conscious decision whether or not they're going to let this pattern continue or if they're going to be the one to break the chain.
And what did the character in the book go through, and how did they break the chain in the pattern?
So you're going to have to read the book to find that out, Annette.
Yeah, Father Shawn got the book and I didn't.
Yeah, he did.
So,
I sent him a copy.
Chance to really look it over, and I would have. I think it's really interesting. I would have looked it over for sure.
Yeah, I sent him a copy and I enclosed a little note saying, Shawn, you want to read this one.
Nice.
And, because I did base one of the characters on him. As you know, I don't think the listeners are quite familiar, but well, maybe they are, because I can't tell you how many times I've been a guest on this show. But Shawn and I go way back. I've been a guest on his show. He was a guest several times on my show when I had one, and I've trained under him in his exorcism classes, and we just have a really good friendship. And so I had no qualms at all about basing the Father Shawn character on Father Shawn himself.
And I love that you did that. There's only one Father Shawn. I mean, he is really different and really special. And I've known him so long, I can't even remember when we first met. That's how long I've known him.
Mm-hmm.
And his books. Of course, I'm his publisher, but his books, he has this way of everything gets really intense, and then he injects something kind of humorous to break that intensity and
Yep.
kind of keep it going. And I love how he does that. So I can't recommend his books highly enough for the stories of the things that he's been through. But we have someone in the chat room saying, I always said when I was growing up that I was not going to be like my mom, but I have failed here and there on occasion. I'm one of those people. I feel like your mother sets the tone if you're a woman. Either you grow up to be a lot like her, or you're trying very hard to not be like your mom. And to the point where I would be like, what would my mom say, or what would my mom do? And then try and go a different direction and be expanded and not duplicate that. But it's hard and really humorous because you can catch yourself saying and doing things that is just like, wow, that was just my mother. That was my mother right there. So that is, something very interesting. But Clarissa, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, good. Because it was doing the spinny thing again.
I know.
Okay.
Darn technology. So the key is, we're all human. God made us, with our imperfections and all. And as much as we try not to be like our parents or like the people who influence us the most in our younger or even in our adult days, um, the key is to not stop trying, to always strive to be better. And whether it's a positive aspect or a negative aspect that you're trying to change, the key is to, don't stop trying. If you recognize that there's something in yourself that you want to work on and you want to fix, you're the only one that can do that. And you can go to therapy and obtain the tools, or seek the guidance from clergy to obtain the tools, but ultimately you're the one that has to do the work. And so don't stop trying. If you see something that you want to change within yourself, keep working toward changing that.
Right. We have a comment saying, all rooted from trauma, it carries on pain and karma down the lineage. This is the root that creates narcissism and toxic behaviors. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think sometimes, here's an example. Be careful how you act around your kids, especially young girls, because they grow up and even though they know this isn't a very good idea for me, it seems normal because it's so familiar. So I think some of it is a mixed bag of some is, well, it's generational anyway if it's appearing one generation after another. So it's definitely that. So if you break it, you're able to set a new tone and a better example for all the descendants coming in after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And trauma can be a big thing, or there can be no trauma at all. You just you may have been raised by someone who didn't know to treat people any differently because that's how they were treated, and then that's how the previous generation was treated, and the generation before that, and the generation before that. And so it may not necessarily be trauma based. It's just what people have known. It's what they've always known, and they don't know any better per se. But it's up to us to look within ourselves and see, if something needs to be changed, and take the steps to change them.
Do you have to clearly identify what it is and where it came from in order to break free from it?
I don't think you have to identify where it came from per se, because it's within you. You absolutely have to identify what it is. Say, I don't like the way that I speak to my significant other, because, I'm not necessarily the nicest person and I expect him to be a mind reader when he's not. And so that's, a conscious decision that I'm going to make, is to be nicer to him when I communicate with him and not expect him to be a mind reader, and, thus avoiding conflict, etc. So, again, I think it's, and that's not necessarily something as the result of trauma, but, the way I was raised. And, my mother expected, people to be readers, and my grandmother expected people to be mind readers, and my great grandmother expected that. And so it's having those unrealistic expectations that is one of the things that I have identified within myself that, I need to work on.
Right. Absolutely. So, deciding that you're going to be the one to make the behavior change.
Right.
Yeah. And that makes all the difference. That's a wonderful thing.
So I'm still trying to get this camera to work, Annette.
It's okay.
It's driving me bonkers.
I'm like, is she there?
No, she's still here.
Okay, she's still there.
I'm not clicking the microphone button. I'm clicking the camera button. I even rebooted my phone. Hey, there I am.
Well, I just started at the beginning. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. We're so glad you're here. So that's much better. So I really love that about people looking. It's really pattern recognition and deciding that I'm going to do something different. And that's something different because we think that we have to make enormous changes in order to change the life course of people in our family, or even, I'm going to just go on a limb and say, in the world at large. But sometimes you can make small changes that carry very big impact. Oh no, now I don't hear her. Wait a minute.
How about now?
Better.
Okay. Yay.
So I was saying the impact of changes that you make into, the lives of future generations, or even beyond your family, and just recognizing and breaking patterns.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I love that. I think that's really important because it's easy to just keep cookie cuttering. It makes me think of, those Mother Goose rhymes. Those were told generation to generation. Some of those go back to the 1500s.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure do.
And people, there's nothing wrong with them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying how long things can continue by being said from parent to child and not being thought of or questioned. And, hundreds of years later, is still going strong. They had a guy on a podcast that was talking about different regions of the country and why they are the way they are, and what part of the world they settled from, and what their lives were like, what they were looking for, what their core expectations and beliefs were, and how that still continues. Again, more than just a few generations. It's like a thread running through the fabric.
Right. It's almost like a genetic code in some instances.
Yes. Let's see, we got a comment over here. Another topic people don't address, and from my background of experience, fetal alcohol syndrome can cause missing links in the brain to understand consequences. They can be diagnosed as narcissist. That's interesting. The narcissism thing is an interesting topic because they're saying that we've become a more narcissistic society overall. And I'm not saying that everyone's a narcissist. I'm saying narcissistic.
Mhm.
We don't diagnose anybody, but it could be as many as 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 people would be considered narcissistic at this point in time.
And, Annette, I don't disagree with that. I think, especially in today's age of instant gratification and social
Yes,
media and things of that nature, I think personalities have shifted dramatically. I think
yes,
the golden rule has gone the way of the dodo.
yes,
And so, what you're left with is textbook narcissism, whether a person is a narcissist or whether they just have narcissistic characteristics in their personality. I'm not a psychologist. I can't
right.
diagnose anybody, but it is there. It's prevalent in today's society. I don't disagree with that at all.
I would love to see people go more old school, like back in the day, and just a little please, thank you, and excuse me would go very far. But
Mhm.
just, basic manners. And when you have manners, that's your respect for another human being.
Absolutely.
It's not all about us and what we want. And like you said, instant gratification. We're not used to having to wait for anything. Drive
Right.
up to one window, point at the picture of the burger you want, give them your money, drive up to the next window. And
Right.
nobody's used to, if they have to wait a little bit, they get very angry.
Hmm.
It's an instant society.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in this again, in this age of instant gratification, social media, and a world full of Karens, uh,
Right,
we have behaviors and character traits that are not socially acceptable. Somehow they've become socially acceptable, but really they're not.
right. And somehow we've lost our own sense of our own personal sovereignty and other people's personal sovereignty, which comes under the realm of boundaries.
Hmm.
And that is that this is my little square and that's your little square. And you don't tell me what to think, how to live, and I don't do that to you unless you're hurting somebody.
Right.
Because
Right.
we all,
Absolutely.
yeah, right. That's kind of been disappearing as well, where just seems like people can get very obnoxious very quick.
Yeah. The term "mind your business" has is long gone.
Right. So we've got another comment about my son has ADHD and my own autism. So he is very impulsive and socially inadequate. That's another thing, too. A lot of this ADD, ADHD, and autism, um, sorry to anybody that's not old like me, but you didn't hear about stuff like that when we were kids.
Mm-mm.
They didn't have, I'm not saying it wasn't there, but now we have all these conditions where that also seems to feed into a social impulsivity.
Right. And, psychologists are now looking into if it is, and I'm going to preface this by saying, ADHD and autism do exist. They are very, very real. Uh, but it is being looked at now as, um, perhaps not all of the cases of ADHD or autism are genuine psychological issues to be diagnosed, but rather a lack of parenting and a lack of discipline, that, parents are so afraid to parent that they don't discipline the children and give them the skills that they need to behave themselves and to focus on their own and things like that. And again, I'm going to say again, that ADHD and autism are very real, and there absolutely are people out there that do have those conditions and do suffer from those conditions to a certain degree. But what they're looking at now is, are the bulk of those cases that are being treated medicinally, um, are they actual psychological disorders and learning disabilities, or is it simply a lack of structured parenting?
Right. And some are and some aren't.
Right.
Years ago, I worked at a primary school. I worked part of the day in the office so the secretary could go have lunch. And there were so many kids coming in for prescriptions. I was amazed.
Mm-hmm.
I was really amazed. And this include puffers for asthma and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But and again, like you, yes, there are people with these conditions, and sometimes it seems like it's just an excuse, and we'll say that somebody is this or that,
Mm-hmm.
and turn a blind eye. My son, he was what we called hyperactive,
Mm-hmm.
and I took him off of Kool-Aid and a lot of sugar, and I let him play outside before he did his homework to run some of that energy off. And I wasn't going to put him on meds unless his grades fell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I dealt with that. And that turned out fine. That wouldn't work for everybody, but it does work with some people. We have a comment here from Caesar Wolf. I 100% agree with you both. People just don't seem to be nice or care about what they do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a real erosion of us as a society.
Yeah, it really has. And I have a very, very dear friend who has two daughters. The daughters are both grown now, and one of them had some serious behavior issues. And I would come to visit, and within a week, this child is saying yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, saying please, thank you, going
Right,
to bed at bedtime, actually bathing instead of throwing a temper tantrum,
right,
etc. And my friend says, I don't understand how you can get her to do that. And I said, it's parenting 101. You
right,
have to be the parent.
right,
And um, and my friend ultimately did have her daughter put on medication and diagnosed with mild autism. And so now here is this young woman who is heavily medicated because she can't function in society because she never learned how to function in society. Had I been able to be there, 24/7 and guide her and mold her, she may not be on medication to this day. But my friend was so afraid that if she parented her daughters, that that social services were going
right.
to become involved and take her children away. And that's a very real fear that parents have to live with right now is, they can't parent their children.
Right.
And so it's a catch 22, and unfortunately society has dug themselves into this hole, and it's tough to get out. But
In a way, this is a type of generational curse because every generation it got a little worse. And exactly what you said, people were afraid, oh, they're going to say that I'm too strict or too hard on them. This is not even about spankings. We're not even talking
right,
about that.
not even going there with the physical discipline. No.
And that other people think, wow, your parents are mean.
Hmm.
But, something that I did with my kids, not that I'm a know-it-all, but I'm a mom of 5. Indoor voices.
Yep.
Stop crying. Use your words. Tell me what happened. That hysteria wasn't going to get you. Use your words. Talk to me. What happened? Stop crying. No throwing yourself on the floor at the grocery store for no. Oh no, no.
Correct.
And it's little things like that add up. We went through kind of a rabbit hole into all of this. I don't know if you want to continue.
Yeah,
Everybody's
let's shift
liking it.
back.
Everybody is like it. It's something that people don't talk about too much anymore, but
Right.
I'll do a little station identification to everybody that's tuning in late. We have the lovely Clarissa Vazquez with us, and we are talking about her books, and apparently we're talking about child rearing too. And this is uprntalkradio.com, 107.7 FM, New Orleans, and 105.3 in the Gulf Coast. So I'd like to make a little turn and talk about the haunted railways. I think that's cool. By the way, my daddy worked for the railroad. Yeah, I heard about railroads day and night and day. And that was our life in our house. So I heard a lot of stories, but I didn't hear any haunted stories. So I'd love to hear some.
Yeah, so Phantom Trails and Phantom Trains and Haunted Rails of the U.S. is the title of the book. And several years ago, I had a very close friend, as well as my son, who were what they called rail fans. And that's a person who loves trains. They will
Yes.
go down to the train tracks and take pictures and film the trains running. And they know about every locomotive, and they know about every rail line, and they just know everything there is to know about trains. And I'm not just talking model trains, I'm talking actual trains. I can't tell you how many times I've been in New England and stood along the side where the express train runs down, the eastern seaboard, and don't stand too close or it's going to blow you
Yes.
over, just so my son could get a look at the express train and try to get pictures and footage of it. And so for Christmas, I wanted to buy my friend and my son a book about haunted trains. They both loved ghosts, they both loved trains, and I scoured everywhere and I could not find a book about haunted trains. And I was feeling really defeated until one night I'm sitting at my desk and it's like, well, dummy, you're an author. Why don't you write one? And so I did. I started researching all of the lore about, phantom trains and haunted railroad crossings and, haunted tracks, and that's how that book was born. And so there's some really, really cool locations. The train that carried Lincoln's body back to Illinois, uh, that is seen around certain anniversaries. And
Oh, interesting.
yeah,
And I'm a Chicago girl, and we got Chicago people in the chat. And Chicago is like the train hub of the country. We got train tracks and cemeteries everywhere, like lots of trains. And it's not all freight trains. We take trains all over the place going downtown and whatnot. Trains are very much a big part of our life. So we had a train track going right behind our house when I was a kid, after Dad told us about all these wrecks and trains derailing. And it's like, well, and then we bought a house right by the train tracks. I wonder if this seems like the best idea. I'm not sure. So that was kind of funny, but really love that you're talking about Lincoln and his funeral, and that people see that ghostly train. We've had on our show people talking about ghost ships, and that's fascinating as well.
Well, and since you're from, the Chicago area in Illinois, I wrote about a lot of places in that area in my book, The Phantom Hitchhiker Project and America's Haunted Roadways.
Wow.
Yeah, and I actually went to a lot of those locations in the Chicago area. I went to Resurrection Cemetery, and I went to, yeah, I went.
I was
to
just going
a
to
lot of
ask
those
you about
places.
that.
Yep, I went and I did an EVP session trying to interact with Resurrection Mary. I was not successful, but I was only in the area for 48 hours. So it wasn't like I could conduct a thorough investigation. But there's 4 or 5 locations in the Chicago area that I was able to research and write about in that book.
So we got Kira here is from Southern Illinois, and her grandpa helped lay tracks, and Carrie is born in Chicago but raised here in Alberta. So we got even more Illinois people than we thought. But that Resurrection Mary story, I think that's one of the better known stories in this country. And I've been there and by there many times. And my brother we would take a ride, and he'd drive up to the gates, and you could see where she pulled the bars apart. And he would be like, oh, Annette, do you see something? I think I saw something back in there. It's like, let's go. No, wait, do you see that? Did you see anything? I think I saw something. I'm like, for the love of God, let's go. But like, it's very creepy. And they have in their stories of screaming mausoleums.
Oh,
That's another part of that resurrection cemetery, and that cemetery is huge.
yes, it's enormous. I was very impressed and amazed by the size, and I did do an EVP session inside the mausoleum, and
Oh,
yeah, it is enormous. Um, and it was a wonderful experience to have had. And but that road that Resurrection Cemetery sits on, and I'm trying to remember the name of
Archer,
this, Archer Avenue.
Avenue.
Yes, Archer Avenue. There are at least 3 phantom locations on
Yes,
Archer Avenue, and Resurrection Mary is only one of them.
right.
And so I was able to go, up and down Archer Avenue, um, and check out all of those places, including, the spot where the Phantom Monks are believed to be. And
St. James,
yep,
Monk's
St.
Castle.
James.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Yep.
That's down by 107th. That is a creepy place.
Hmm.
In the chat room right now, my friend Roberta, she actually had a very creepy experience um, where she was driving in the car
Hmm.
and but she saw monks walking along the side of the road at night, and that was long after there were any monks that were out there anymore. But that, okay, I have to tell you about this St. James. This is crazy. Back in the day when they did the first atomic bombs, if you remember, like the Fat Man and
Fat Man and Little Boy. Hmm.
yeah, one of them is buried right there behind that church.
I did not know that.
And you wouldn't know that. One day we were looking on Google Earth and we saw this funny square, zoomed in on it and found that out. And that's why all of that is forest preserve. That's why all the handles are off of the water pumps. But I wonder if the energy from that, because unfortunately, of course, they didn't know how to bury something safely like
Right.
that. If any of that is an energy source for the hauntings that go on out there, and also that you can go to mass there and you can go there, but they don't like any paranormal
No.
investigation, nothing. That is no, no, and no.
Yeah. No. And it's even posted
Yeah,
there. That the property is for parishioners only, and yeah, and so I had to be a little stealthy, go in and, snap a couple photos. I did not conduct any EVP sessions
right.
at St. James of the Sag. And uh it's a beautiful, beautiful building.
Yeah, very
And
old and surrounded by cemetery.
yep,
Very old.
yeah.
Mhm.
And that whole area right there, with all of the foliage and everything, is absolutely gorgeous. And so it was quite the experience to be able to be there. But Archer Woods,
Yeah,
there's a Phantom Hitchhiker story there, and and of course Resurrection Mary. And so it was great to be able to go and do that while I was researching the material for the Phantom Hitchhiker project and America's Haunted Roadways.
very, very cool. I am really interested in your books now, especially since it has a heavy Chicago undercurrent,
Hmm.
because I also know all these places. You probably have some stories that I don't know, but there's so many
Yeah.
really intriguing stories. And then you get into all of the Al Capone stuff and the mob. And
Hmm.
I laugh because all these places Al Capone apparently was everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well,
Well, and the murder house during the World's Fair, the United States' first serial killer. Um, I'm trying to remember his name now. I
H.
know it.
H. Holmes.
Holmes. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, Holmes. That building is now a post office,
right,
but it's reported to have some pretty intense paranormal activity also.
right.
Uh, and the
And
great
part of
grandson of
the
him. Yeah.
part of the cellar and the basement is still intact,
Yes.
and then the post office is there.
Yes. And at a few years ago, they allowed Holmes' grandson or great grandson. I'm trying to remember. I think Jeff is his great grandson. They allowed him to go down there and take a look
Oh,
and see where his grandfather had committed those atrocities.
oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and Jeff said that he was glad he did it, but he never wanted to do it again. So,
That had to have been hard.
mhm, yeah,
Very, very hard.
yeah,
And speaking of which, now that we brought that up and the topic, because we're all over the place, we're just
yeah.
having
We're just ping pong ball today.
we're just doing it. So under the topic of generational curse,
Hmm.
now you have H. Holmes. Now you have his grandson.
Hmm. Yeah, and that
And
is actually something that Jeff has brought up, that, if there is a generational curse linked to Holmes, it's going to die with him because, he has no desire to carry on any personality or habitual traits that Holmes may have had.
right. But it would be easy to feel like you are cursed in a way because
Hmm.
when people commit atrocities or serial killers and whatnot, you have not only killed that innocent person, you're kind of killing your family.
Oh,
You're
absolutely.
leaving them a life of shame.
Yep.
And even if people are halfway decent to you, like again, this rep goes into what we were talking about parenting. They're going to look at you as a mother like, what kind of a person did you raise? What's wrong with you that
Hmm.
you raised such a horrendous human being?
Well, and you see it all the time on like these true crime shows, where you have the children of the offender come on and say, at no point in time did I ever think that my dad was capable of this. And people have shunned me now because my dad or my mother or my brother, have done this. And so, and then they're left with the guilt of what their family member has done, and then they're always going to question, does that monster live in me as well?
Right. Well, look at John Wayne Gacy since we're talking Illinois cases.
Hmm.
He had all these bodies buried in the
Hmm.
crawl space and around the house, and people say it smelled terrible,
Hmm.
just atrocious. And this is all in my timeline. I remember this when I was a teenager. He made me not like clowns anymore. I used to have a clown collection until that happened. Then I was thinking, gee, you don't know who a clown is. That could be anybody. That could be friend or foe. Um, I didn't like the idea of clowns after that. But having said all this, there was a lot of people that said his wife had to have known. This place smelled so bad. She had to at least have suspected something. She was turning the other um,
Turning
cheek.
a blind eye. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then you become, in a way, you're not actually guilty, but people are like, cut it out.
Yeah.
Something was weird there.
Yeah.
And you just kept your mouth shut.
Hmm. Yeah, which then makes you an accessory.
Exactly, it does.
Hmm. Yep.
So, what was the most interesting experience you had in that whole area since we have an Illinois and a Chicago crowd?
Oh gosh. Um, you're gonna have to help me with the name of the cemetery. It's not on Archer Avenue, but
Is it
it's,
Bachelor Grove?
yes, Bachelor
I've
Grove.
been there many times.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
Okay.
Trying to cross the highway to actually get to Bachelor Grove, that was an
Right.
adventure.
Right.
Uh, because you have to cross it on foot. There's nowhere nearby to park.
You could end up in Bachelor Grove forever if you do that wrong.
Yeah, uh, exactly. And walking along that path toward
Yeah.
Bachelor Grove, um, you could, and this was in broad daylight. You
Yeah.
could feel
Yeah.
the eyes on you.
Yeah.
You could feel, and I don't claim to have extra sensory abilities of any kind.
Yeah.
I don't claim to be a psychic, a medium, a sensitive, and intuitive. I don't claim to have any of that. Um, but you could feel the eyes on you. And, and I've been investigating paranormal phenomena for 30 years. I am so desensitized to all of
Yeah.
it. It, it to unnerve me or spook me, it would take a lot. And so it wasn't spooky or scary or unnerving or anything like that. But walking down that path, you could feel the eyes on you. You knew that they were in the trees, that they were watching you. And then, you turn and actually go into the cemetery. It just opens up into this beautiful, yeah, beautiful field, just surrounded by trees, and it's so beautiful and so peaceful and so serene. And you have to tell yourself, you're like, I don't blame them for staying. This is gorgeous. I would stay here too.
Well, it's a lot of things there. And people have gotten EVPs on that path walking
Mhm,
towards, just like you're saying, you feel it.
mhm.
So if you think you have to get inside the cemetery to
Yeah, no,
pick
you
up
really don't.
anything, you really don't.
Mm-mm.
Secondly, they had a lot of people doing a lot of satanic ritual out
Oh,
there, which is bad.
yeah.
And then you have the swamp back there where they say the mob dumped bodies, because
Mhm.
back in the day, all the way out there, that was like the boondocks.
Right.
Chicago kind of grew and made neighborhoods around all of these places, cemeteries and whatnot.
Mhm.
But that was a dumping place for the mob. So
Wow.
there's people that are buried there that we know about, and there could still be people in the swamp or people that died there and they dragged the body out. But it's a very interesting place.
Yeah. And when we were there, there was a guy from one of the local universities, and he was actually mapping the cemetery. And, not only was he mapping it, but he was also going through with a Geiger counter and, checking for hot spots. And they were getting ready to do a project with ground penetrating radar, and to see if there was any correlation between unmarked graves potentially connected to the mob, and these hot spots that the Geiger counter was giving off. One of the universities was doing a huge project when we were there.
Well, there's been a lot of vandalism, and not all the stones are there anymore, and you wouldn't know it, but there's 80 plus bodies buried there
Yeah.
in that small little cemetery, but you wouldn't think it anymore, but it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it's absolutely beautiful. And my first thought was, I don't blame them for staying. I would stay here too. This is gorgeous. I love it. Uh, I'm sure they're not bothered by the heat in the summertime. So,
Well, it got very forgotten and overgrown. And then people doing rituals in there, that starts a whole nother line of something being wrong with this place, and then the swamp. So it's really an interesting story. I think they're taking better care of it anymore, which I'm glad for. It's always sad to see people that do damage and desecrate graves. I don't know what you get out of it to do that. I don't know how that makes you a happier, better human being to do that. It's just so terrible.
yeah, I don't know. When I was there, it was very well maintained. The grass was mowed. It was not overgrown. Um, and it was a beautiful walk to get in and out.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent one too. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah, it's quite the hike.
It
But,
is.
if you're not in shape and can't walk, a considerable distance, I don't recommend it. But, uh, it's again, it's just beautiful.
Yeah. Well, that whole forest preserve area is so nice, and
Mhm,
it's kind of got the perfect recipe for a very haunted place. So
mhm.
you have a power tower there. I think it's a cell phone tower. Right when you're about to go in the path, there's a huge tower.
Right.
Then it's got the swamp.
Mhm.
And when it rains, the whole cemetery becomes surrounded by water like a little trench.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you've
So,
got water and electricity, not to mention anything that's going on underground in like a
right.
geomagnetic or a geothermic or uh
Yes.
yeah. And so yeah, I can absolutely see the conditions being prime for a haunting.
Right. Well, believe it or not, we've almost talked up our whole hour. And I want to give you a chance to tell everybody again about your books and your website. And I really enjoyed talking to you. It turned out to be an awful lot of fun. We went all over the place. Love to
Yeah,
have
we
you back
kind of did.
again.
Sorry, Shawn.
Yeah,
Yeah. So all of my books are available on Amazon. Ghosts of the Heart, A Paranormal Investigator's Journey is a fiction book loosely based on some of my actual experiences in my 30 years now of paranormal research. Ghost Hunting in Colorado, Theories for Worldwide Investigators. It's got a great little haunted tour guide at the back of the book for Colorado, but the phenomena and theories contained within are applicable anywhere. There is No Monsters Here, a children's book that is designed to empower children to take control of their surroundings and conquer those fears of the dark. I have a cookbook out. Of course, we talked about Phantom Trains, Haunted Rails of the US, and the Phantom Hitchhiker Project in America's Haunted Roadways. I also have Debunking Common Paranormal Myths, Exploring Psychosomatic Pareidolia, which I co authored with Chris Carr. And it talks a lot about all of the false positives out there in the paranormal field. A lot of the things that paranormal researchers are calling concrete data indicating paranormal phenomena when it's actually not. It's a really good book for any serious researcher. And then, of course, my latest book, Demons of the Coven. Again, it's fiction, but it is loosely based on some of my experiences growing up, woven into this amazing paranormal tale with the kindly priest, Father Shawn, based on our own Shawn Whittington.
all sounds very interesting. All could be found on Amazon,
Mhm.
paperback, Kindle. Do you have any audiobooks?
No audiobooks. A friend of mine and I, just a few years ago, launched our own publishing company, Snapdragon's Treasure Publishing LLC. And so we haven't branched out into audiobook yet. But as soon as we are able to make that leap and do audiobook, Ghosts of the Heart is one of the first that we're going to convert.
Nice. I just absolutely loved having you. I want to say thank you again. Come back again soon. And our thanks to our owner, Joe Montaldo, and to Michelle DeRoche for helping us and for the opportunity to be on the air. And we want to tell everybody we love that you join us. You mean the world to us. Have a great night. Have a fabulous weekend. And we will be back next week. I think next week is um, myself and Susan Ahern. We have a psychic that comes once a month. So that ought to be a really great show. And thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And thanks again, Clarissa. We
It was,
appreciate you.
it was my pleasure, Annette. Thank you.